and no one's ever here. It's awesome.
That's awesome.
Nice little find.
My husband does like a live stream show every Sunday called Coffee with Croy at 11, from 11 to noon, like at the same time as devotions. And so we always do our own thing so he can have a home to play music in for the World Wide Web. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Maybe we should find out what he uses for streaming too.
For streaming.
We were just talking about, Chris has been looking for a platform where you can stream on multiple, not just on YouTube or Facebook, but on, you know, like ads.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Corey hasn't figured that out. I think he uses like his phone for Instagram and his computer for Facebook, and that's all. He has to use like 2 devices. And yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, let's start. Let's see what we got here. We are going to switch the view. All right. So we are going to start with devotions. Let me share my screen. Here we go. All right. So it starts with a song, and then I'll let people unmute when they're ready. So let me just hit the mute all.
Nice graphic.
Yeah, there we go. All right.
Quand je me pensais de guerre, opposer lui une plus forte pensée de paix. Une pensée de haine doit être neutralisée par une plus puissante pensée d'amour. Quand je me pensais de guerre, opposer lui une plus forte pensée de paix. Une pensée de haine doit être neutralisée par une plus puissante pensée d'amour. Vous contentez pas de manifester votre amitié par des paroles, mais que votre cœur brûle d'amour envers tous ceux que vous croisez sur votre route.
O Allah, the sustainer of mankind, remove the illness, cure the disease. You are the one who cures. There is no cure except your cure. Grant us a cure that leaves no illness.
They said to him, "What must we do to be doing the works of God?" Jesus answered them, "This is the work of God, that you believe in him whom he has sent."
Mankind, there has come to you a guidance from your Lord and a healing for the diseases in your hearts. And for those who believe, a guidance and a mercy.
The world-honored one is very rare. Only with difficulty can he be encountered. Fully endowed with incalculable merits, he can rescue and preserve all. The great teacher of gods and men, he takes pity on the world and living beings in the 10 directions. All everywhere receive his favors.
When evil prevailed upon earth, when truth had been forgotten and life had become a sinful burden to mankind, there went out a prayer to God, entreating him to come down upon the earth as a savior of humanity. The omniscient, omnipresent Lord knew the sufferings of mankind, and out of his great and all-consuming love for his children, wished to lift the veil of ignorance which covered their sight, to be born as man, Krishna, in order to show them once more how to ascend toward himself.
This man, the Holy One through righteousness, holds in his spirit the force which heals existence, beneficent unto all, as a sworn friend, O wise one.
From Wakantanka, the great mystery, comes all power. It is from Wakantanka that the holy man has wisdom and the power to heal and make holy charms. Man knows that all healing plants are given by Wakantanka. Therefore, they are holy. So too is the buffalo holy, because it is the gift of Wakantanka.
Every divine manifestation is the very life of the world and the skilled physician of each ailing soul. The world of man is sick, and that competent physician knoweth the cure, arising as he doth with teachings, counsels, and admonishments that are the remedy for every pain, the healing balm of every wound.
And we send down in the Quran such things that have healing and mercy for the believers.
The Lord came down in a pillar of cloud and stood at the entrance of the tent and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forward. And he said, "Hear my words. If there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, make myself known to him in a vision. I speak with him in a dream."
I have yet many things to say unto you, but ye cannot bear them now.
Whenever there is a decline in righteousness of Bharat, and arise in a religion. Then I send forth my Spirit for the salvation of those who are good, for the destruction of evil in men, for the fulfillment of the kingdom of righteousness. I manifest myself from age to age.
I cured with the power that came through me. Of course, it was not I who cured. It was the power from the outer world. The visions and ceremonies only made me like a hole through which the power could come to the two-leggeds. If I thought that I was doing it myself, the hole would close up and no power could come through.
The Tathagata, with unimpeded compassion, pities the three worlds. The reason the Tathagata appeared in this world is to propagate the Buddha's teaching, to save all sentient beings, and to bestow true benefit upon them.
That which has streamed forth from the most exalted pen is conducive to the glory, the advancement, and the education of all the peoples and kindreds of the earth. Indeed, it is the sovereign remedy for every disease, could they but comprehend and perceive it.
O great Spirit, whose voice I hear in the wind, whose breath gives life to all the world, hear me. I need your strength and wisdom. Let me walk in beauty and make my eyes ever behold the red and purple sunset. Make my hands respect the things you have made, and my ears sharp to hear your voice. Make me wise, so that I may understand the things you have taught my people. Help me to remain calm and strong in the face of all that comes towards me. Let me learn the lessons you have hidden in every leaf and rock. Help me seek pure thoughts and act with the intention of helping others. Help me find compassion without empathy overwhelming me. I seek strength, not to be greater than my brother, but to fight my greatest enemy, myself. Make me always ready to come to you with clean hands and straight eyes. So when life fades, as the fading sunset, my spirit may come to you without shame.
O thou candle of the love of God, I ask God to grant thee by his favor and grace that which is thy utmost desire, that the closed doors become opened, the uneven roads become even. Thy faith rest attain spiritual joy. Eternal happiness and heavenly light. Eternal happiness and heavenly light. O thou candle of the love of God.
That concludes the prepared portion of devotion. So now I'd like to open it up for anyone who would like to share any devotions. Please feel free to unmute yourself.
This is a prayer for youth. O thou kind Lord, graciously bestow a pair of heavenly wings unto each of these fledglings, and give them spiritual power, that they may wing their flight through this limitless space and may soar to the heights of the Abha kingdom. O Lord, strengthen these fragile seedlings, that each one may become a fruitful tree, verdant and flourishing. Render these souls victorious through the potency of thy celestial hosts, that they may be able to crush the forces of error and ignorance, and to unfurl the standard of fellowship and guidance amidst the people, that they may, even as the reviving breaths of the spring, refresh and quicken the trees of human souls, and like unto vernal showers, make the meads of that region green and fertile. Thou art the mighty and the powerful. Thou art the bestower and the all-loving.
O thou forgiving Lord, O thou the shelter of all thy servants, thou knowest of all secret and art aware of all things. We are all helpless, thou art the omnipotent, the powerful. We are all sinners, thou art the forgiver of all sins, the merciful, the compassionate. O Lord, look not at our shortcomings, deal with us according to thy grace and thy bounty. Our shortcomings are many, but the ocean of thy forgiveness is boundless. Our weakness are grievous, but the evidence of thy aid and assistance are clear. Therefore confirm and strengthen us, enable us to do which is worthy in thy holy threshold. Illumine our hearts, grant us discerning eyes and attentive ears. Resuscitate the dead, heal the sick, bestow wealth upon the poor, give peace and security to the fearful. Illumine our hearts with the light of thy guidance, accept us in thy kingdom. Thou art the powerful, thou art the clement, thou art the kind.
O thou forgiving Lord, although some souls have spent the days of their lives in ignorance and became estranged and contumacious, yet with one wave from the ocean of thy forgiveness, all those encompassed by sin will be set free. Whomsoever thou willest, thou makest a confidant, and whomsoever is not the object of thy choice is accounted a transgressor. Shouldst thou deal with us with thy justice, we are not but sinners and deserving to be shut out from thee. But should thou uphold mercy, every sinner will be made pure, and every stranger a friend. Bestow them thy forgiveness and pardon, and grant thy mercy unto all. Thou art the forgiver, the light giver, and the omnipotent.
I'd like to say a prayer for a special person named John DeGange. He was the father of my children, and he passed away unexpectedly. And so I just want to say a prayer for him. Grant, O my Lord, that they who have ascended unto thee may repair unto him who is the most exalted companion, and abide beneath the shadow of the tabernacle of thy majesty, in the sanctuary of thy glory. Sprinkle, O my Lord, upon them from the ocean of thy forgiveness what will make them worthy to abide, so long as thine own sovereignty endureth within thy most exalted kingdom, in thine all highest dominion. Potent art thou to do what pleasest thee. Follow.
O God, O thou who hast cast thy splendor over the luminous realities of men, shedding upon them the resplendent lights of knowledge and guidance, and hast chosen them out of all created things for the supernal grace, and hast caused them to encompass all things, to understand their inmost essence, and to disclose their mysteries, bringing them forth out of darkness into the visible world. He verily showeth his special mercy to whomsoever he will. O Lord, help thou thy loved ones to acquire knowledge in the sciences and arts, and to unravel the secrets that are treasured up in the inmost reality of all created beings. Make them to hear the hidden truths that are written and embedded in the heart of all that is. Make them to be ensigns of guidance amongst all creatures, and piercing rays of the mind, shedding forth their light in this, the first life. Make them to be leaders unto thee, guides unto thy path, runners urging men on to thy kingdom. Thou verily art the powerful, the protector, the potent, the defender, the mighty, the most generous.
River Waverly, did you want to say a prayer too?
The earth is not what you think. It's more.
Sorry, I'm sorry, everyone. We'll try again later.
Well, thank you so much. That was wonderful to hear. Even kids having problems, then as parents, we've all been there.
Absolutely.
You should see
I loved Elizabeth's background, like
That was
accompaniment. It was fantastic.
It was fantastic. Yeah.
What's crazy is that he was actually really quiet until I started talking, and then he was like, I guess wanted to join in. I don't know.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah, it worked. Yeah.
Well, these are the good old days. You'll look back on them fondly in 30 years.
Yeah. Well, now, how old are your grandkids now, Lisa?
6 and 9, and my baby's about to turn 40 this year.
Oh, wow.
So,
Nice.
at the time you guys feel like you're in the trenches, but someday you'll look back on and miss these days.
Right. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
Gabrielle, my sincere and deep condolences. I know that's tough.
Thank you. I
Yes.
really appreciate that. He died of a massive heart attack unexpectedly, and my kids are only in their 20s, and the grief is just really, hard, horrible. So thank you for saying that, Nabil, and it was nice to be able to say a prayer with everyone.
Yeah, it's been a tough year for a lot of us, dealing with a lot of loss and death, and in the age of COVID is really hard too, because it makes it more challenging to, go places, and yeah, it's really rough. Well,
Goodbye, everybody. Have a good day.
See you, Lisa. Okay, so all right, so today for our readings, we are going to look at, there's a whole bunch of new translated writings from Abdul Baha that we are going to look at. We're not going to look at all of them, we're just going to look at some of them, which is going to be kind of interesting. So let me bring up the first one we're going to look at. Now, has anyone seen all these? Let me actually put the reference, let me put the thing in the chat. If you look, I'll put the link in the chat. But on the global website, Abdul Baha, if you scroll down, and I'll share my screen for a second. Here we go. If you scroll down, you go to the writings and talks of Abdul Baha, and you scroll down. Let me click that off. Okay, there we go. Okay, so you scroll down, you'll see there's 3 links down here: additional prayers, 26 prayers, and additional tablets, extracts, and talks. So there's all these are fairly new and recent things. Some of them have been translated previously, but these are like new, better translations for most of these. So there are a number of things, and a lot of these are pretty short and they're kind of interesting. Just little letters to people being like, oh, I'm coming to Montreal, I'm coming to New York, or that kind of thing. It's kind of nice. But a couple of them were pretty interesting. So let me see if I can find the first one I wanted to share. Where is it? A bunch of these open. All right. Here we go. We are going to look at, where was it? There was one written to a woman who had written written a play about the Bab. Let's see. Where did it go? I just had, see, this is the disadvantage of having so many screens. All right. Let's see. Extract. Nope. And give me just 2 seconds. Where did it go? We had it. 2 seconds. History. And let me see here. Oh, apologies. I can't find it. Well, here, I'll look for that one. Let's start with this. there's one that I found fascinating. We'll start with this one first. This is a question about economics, and Abdul Baha outlines the way a village might be set up. Kind of interesting. All right. Nabil, you want to start reading this one?
Sure. This is an extract from a tablet of Abdul Baha. The question of economics must commence with the farmer and then be extended to the other classes, inasmuch as the number of farmers is far greater than all other classes. Therefore, it is fitting to begin with the farmer in matters related to economics, for the farmer is the first active agent in human society. In brief, from among the wise men in every village, a board should be set up, and the affairs of that village should be under the control of that board. Likewise, a general storehouse should be founded with the appointment of a secretary. At the time of the harvest, under the direction of that board, a certain percentage of the entire harvest should be appropriated for the storehouse. The storehouse has 7 revenues: tithes, taxes on animals, property without an heir, all lost objects found whose owners cannot be traced, 1/3 of all treasure trove, 1/3 of the produce of all mines, and voluntary contributions. This storehouse also has 7 expenditures: general running expenses of the storehouse, such as the salary of the secretary and the administration of public health, tithes to the government, taxes on animals to the government, costs of running an orphanage, costs of running a home for the incapacitated, costs of running a school, payment of subsidies to provide needed support of the poor. You want me to keep going? Or maybe
Yeah, go ahead.
else? Okay. The first revenue is the tithe. It should be collected as follows. If, for instance, the income of a person is $500 and his necessary expenses are the same, no tithes will be collected from him. If another's expenses are $500 while his income is $1,000, 1/10 will be taken from him, for he hath more than his needs. If he giveth 1/10 of the surplus, his livelihood will not be adversely affected. If another's expenses are $1,000 and his income is $5,000, as he hath $4,000 surplus, he will be required to give 1.5 tenths. If another person hath necessary expenses of $1,000, but his income is $10,000, from him 2/10 will be required, for his surplus represents a large sum. But if the necessary expenses of another person are $4,000 or $5,000 and his income 100,000, 1/4 will be required from him. On the other hand, should a person's income be 200, but his needs absolutely essential for his livelihood be $500, and provided he hath not been remiss in his work, or his farm hath not been blessed with a harvest, such a one must receive help from the general storehouse, so that he may not remain in need and may live in comfort. A certain amount must be put aside for the general storehouse for the orphans of the village, and a certain sum for the incapacitated. A certain amount must be provided from this storehouse for those who are needy and incapable of earning a livelihood, and a certain amount for the village's system of education, and a certain amount must be set aside for the administration of public health. If anything is left in the storehouse, that must be transferred to the general treasury of the nation for national expenditures.
Now,
So it's a storehouse like a metaphor, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating, right? Like this idea of a storehouse and the things that like it is like this kind of concept of, this place that, creates for the greater good of society, does public health, it runs orphanage, subsidies to provide the need to support the poor. Like these concepts are fascinating. And Abdul Baha, in the taxation part of this, where he's talking about like if you make more, you tax more. It is it's
a progressive tax code.
It is a progressive tax code. It absolutely is, which is fascinating. Which even in American society we have debates about, right? Like some people are like, oh, let's have a flat tax. Let's, there's different ideas of what taxation should be. And Abdul Baha lays it out like this, if you have more money, you should give more. It's pretty clear. And this is not the only place I've seen him talk about that.
Well, and just so that I'm clear, it's not just that you give more on account of because you're giving the same percentage and you have more than you're paying more, but you're also paying a higher percentage because your excess is more.
Right. Right.
I have a question. So Baha'is give to the Baha'i Fund, and we do it based on, after all of our bills are paid, like this. But this seems to be separate from the Baha'i Fund. It seems like part of a future economic system. Is that correct? Do you think?
Yes, 100%. This is like the future of like what a Baha'i inspired like administration would look like, and the administration in the community, which is fascinating. And also note that he mentioned the acknowledgement of people who might not be earning enough to make ends meet, to live comfortably, and that we have to step in and pay that, right? It's so interesting to talk about these issues from a Baha'i standpoint, because of course as Baha'is, we don't want to be politically charged and like get in these political arguments about this, but there's some basic fundamental spiritual principles that we have to support, which taking care of the poor is one of them, right? And it's interesting how in American discourse, particularly, sometimes talking about these can become so politicized to like, oh, we don't want to give handouts and this and that. You can have this kind of thing. But Abdul Baha clearly lays out here that we have to acknowledge the needs of our fellow human beings and make sure it's being met, which I find really interesting.
I'm glad you brought up politics. And when I meant progressive tax code, I didn't mean it in the progressive versus conservative realm. I meant progressively higher taxes for for increased wealth.
Right, exactly. I know it's like the words are so hard to even talk about some of these issues sometimes, because you say a certain word and it'll trigger people, right? So Chris, you gonna say something?
Yeah, I like the idea of profit sharing as well, particularly when you look at the nursing home industry, which it is. It's an industry off the backs of elders, and nurse aides are the working poor in America. You have what's currently being practiced is cream skimming by owners of nursing homes, where they take all the profits after all the debts are paid, and the nurse aides are so poor that they don't even know if their car is going to start in the morning to get to work. And the nursing homes are running like over 100% turnover. So, and turnover relates to care, quality of care. So the Baha'i idea of profit sharing as well with different companies is beginning to happen in America, and I see it in my area with nursing home industry, where there's more fair taxes and so forth, and a spiritual transformation among the owners has to occur as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it is interesting to think of our current society and what we value and what we pay for and where we put our money, right? I reflect on that a lot. How much do we pay our teachers? How much do we pay our child caregivers? And unfortunately, we look at current society and it's pretty much upside down, right? From a Baha'i perspective, at least, of where we put our priorities.
So I got a question. What about the taxes on animals to the government? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I was thinking about that as well. It's funny you should mention that, because I've been doing some research on my family history. And one of the things that on my grandmother's side, they were French colonists, and I can trace them back to like some of the first colonists from France in Quebec. And one of the documents that I found was like tax documents that were like saying like, my great grandfather had a certain number of rifles, a certain number of pigs, and he was paying taxes on those things. So I think about it from a spiritual perspective. So taxes on animals to the government. So there's some kind of room for taxes on purchases. So I find that interesting. Yeah, I mean, we pay taxes on a lot of things, right? We pay taxes on buying stuff, and there's various taxes. So I don't know if anyone else has some thoughts on that principle.
My first thought was for livestock. So you have agrarian people who actually grow crops and people who just raise animals, probably. Like if you have livestock, that's considered income because you would sell the cattle or you would sell the pig eventually as an income. That's what I thought when I saw taxes on animals, and I was like, okay, maybe because my mom actually rears pigs back home, and she sells them, and that's her source of revenue or income. So.
And is the tax on the sale or on the ownership? Like, is it a yearly tax, or is it just like a one-time and you've paid your tax on the animal?
That is a fascinating question. I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, also, what kind of animals?
I know I have a purebred hypoallergenic cat. What kind of tax should I be paying on that thing, right? Absolutely. No, these are good questions. Yeah. That's why I found this one fascinating to kind of look at it.
I think my Mastiff would draw. She would draw a large amount of taxing.
If you had to pay by weight, Chris, you'd be out of luck.
Absolutely. Nabil and I would be insisting getting on the smallest dogs possible.
Chihuahua.
Yes, those teacup terriers or whatever.
Aaron would have to pay on her German Shepherds.
Right. Fantastic.
We have much mention of the future commonwealth in some of these symposiums, Baha'i symposiums or anything, or anyone have any thoughts on that or read anything interesting lately?
Yeah, one of the things I was exploring recently, Ali Nakjavani has a book called Towards World Order that deals with a lot of these issues. It deals a little bit more about world government in the future, but it is fascinating to look at some of the vision of a future world order. It's particularly interesting as we see our current world order crumbling right now. I mean, if anything, I don't know if anyone else feels current situation of things that have happened recently where you're seeing humanity struggle to come together, to work together to fight a common enemy, right? In this case, it was COVID, right? And you're seeing like, some people are really getting it and they're like, okay, we need to work together. Other people, their reaction is to pull back and fight against it and be like, I don't like this. Like there's whole like hashtags like no new normal, right? Where people didn't want to do any of the things that were required to help prevent the spread of COVID, right? Where they struggle with that. And the struggle with advancing ourselves as humanity is a common theme in the Baha'i history, right? I mean, that's one of the things, I keep trying to talk to my son about, about how humanity is trying to get better. We're trying to struggle with like sacrifice. Actually, funny thing, back to this, the other day, I was driving my car and went through the drive-through to pick up a prescription. I had to pick up a couple of prescriptions for my wife, and Turner's in the back seat. And as I'm paying for it, he gets upset. And he's like, why are you paying? Why are you giving money? I'm like, oh, I have to pay for the medicine. He's like, but she's sick. She just needs medicine. You shouldn't have to give money. What if we didn't have money? Right? Really like getting like really, he was like, this doesn't make sense to me, right? Like we should be taking care of this. People shouldn't have to pay for it. And what's funny was he has an assignment where he's supposed to write the president for school. He's supposed to write a letter next week. He's like, I'm going to write to the president and tell him that we shouldn't do this, that we should pay for people's medicine, right? Which I thought was just so cute. And just seeing in his 8-year-old mind of him being like, wait, we need to take care of each other. Why aren't we all taking care of each other? was fascinating to me. And so I kind of told him, well, you know, as Baha'is, we're trying to help get the world to a better place where we do take care of each other. And, you know, all that was right here in this talk. So I thought that was pretty cute. Little 8-year-old. You can see the gears going in his head. Like, we should take care of each other. So, Chris, you gonna say something?
I was going to mention when we were living in Scotland, you know, my wife was getting over cancer and had, you know, celiac disease. The chemist is a pharmacist, that's what they call chemists, but, you know, they actually, as part of her treatment for celiac, they actually had gluten-free bread in the pharmacies for that the government paid for. And doctors were available, like if we needed a phone conversation or a house call, even in some of them, the medical care was, and I don't want to get into the politics of it, but they just have a straight salary that generally doctors make. They don't make a fortune. It doesn't become, medicine doesn't become an enterprise to make a huge, they make larger than most salaries, but it's the philosophy is different. And that's one thing. I mean, Scotland has a lot of problems, but that was one thing I really liked was the attitude. And it's actually a secular country. You don't have Christmas, you have bank holidays. The whole UK has become secularized. So, but it needs the spiritual to go with it, right? But I like that attitude about medicine as well. I think medicine and pharmaceutical industries have really just they have no spiritual perspective.
You know, what I found interesting is the priorities also, right, that are listed there. If, you know, it was on the screen earlier, but you know, some of these are also the things that are supposed to be in the, when a Baha'i house of worship is fully, I guess, has fully come to fruition. You know, there will be an orphanage as well. There will be a place of learning. There will be, you know, a place to take care of those who are ill. So looking at the incomes in that, on the first part of that paragraph there, or the first paragraph itself rather, it says a third. I'm sorry, the one that you were showing, not, you didn't have to scroll up. Sorry about that. It mentions the seven revenues, and then it says a third of all treasure trove. I wonder what that refers to. And then a third of the produce of all mines. That's like, you know, mining can be big business. You know, a country I grew up in, that was the main income of the country because of, you know, bauxite and gold and things like that. But what's treasure trove? I mean, I've heard of the term, but I've never thought of it as a actual, like a physical thing that you could tax.
Could it be gold and silver and precious metals that a country has, or?
Yeah, perhaps, right? I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I was interested in that one as well, because it says that and then the mines thing. So I wasn't quite sure what that necessarily meant. I'd have to look more into it.
Right. It almost seems like a tax on property and not necessarily income, but on property. So you have animals, if you have you know, treasure, if that, you know, and then voluntary contributions, you know, yeah, which is also an interesting concept, right? If sort of you have this economy that is just and people have faith in it enough to where they will make voluntary contributions to it.
Right, right.
And Nabil, what's very interesting is you were talking about property taxes, but I find it very interesting that they're not mentioned. And when you think about how sometimes people actually lose their homes because taxes are tied to value, And in urban areas, people get to the point where they lose, generational family homes. Very interestingly, it only mentions taxes on property without, or the revenue, on property without an heir, and not property taxes. Find that
True.
interesting.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't mention like the place you're living in, right?
Right. That is interesting. Because that is a serious problem where people get taxed out of their homes. Yeah, I've seen that.
Oh yeah, I've got some ideas about that. How that happens here. Like there's ways of fixing it, and I that's got to get addressed. If it's in the hands of a family, then that should not go up beyond the price of what they had paid for it. As long as they're living there. So.
And it's tough too, because schools are funded by property taxes. So you see a direct correlation between quality of schools and property taxes, right? So I do that all the time on Zillow. I'll go to like poor neighborhoods and just see like how schools are rated in certain neighborhoods, and then switch over to other wealthy neighborhoods and just see how schools are rated. There's a direct correlation, and people have tried to address the issue, but it's clear that we're far from getting to a true equity. All right, so let's switch gears. We can talk about this all day. Let's go switch gears to another fascinating tablet. Let me see. I did find it. Okay. So here we go. We're gonna look at this one. I found it. All right. So let's first start off. So this tablet is addressed to, it says, "O thou who art dear to Abdul Baha." All right, so who is he talking to here? It should be, so it's this woman right here. I don't know how to say her last name, Isabella Grinevskaya. I've heard of her in the past, so I'm going to show you who she is.
Grinevskaya?
Yeah, Grinevskaya, here. So I'll show you who she is. Now, I know some people may be aware of that the Baha'i faith, and particularly the Babi faith as well, was on the radar of the government of Russia because of Iran's relation to Russia. So there was a lot of talk in Russia about the Babi movement, and then subsequently the Baha'i movement. So this woman is fascinating. She was a Russian Jewish novelist, poet, and dramatist. And she translated Russian works from Polish, German, French, Italian, Armenian, and Georgian, right? So what's really interesting about her, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. In May 1903, she published Bob, a 5-act poetic drama based on the life of the founder of Babism. This is straight from Wikipedia. So it was performed on stage following January at the St. Petersburg Literary Artistic Society Theater. So what's interesting about this, the play was praised for its literary quality, most notably by Leo Tolstoy. There was a ban on its production, and the city was nonetheless imposed by government censors after 5 performances.
Wow.
Still, the drama had successful runs in these places. So pretty interesting, right?
Very cool.
Yeah. So
does that mean that there's a copy of it?
That is a fascinating question. I have to look into that if there's a copy of that play. That would be fascinating. I will look for that. All right, so let's look a little bit at this letter that Abdul Baha wrote to her. So let's see. Okay. All right. Oh, thou who art dear to Abdul Baha. All right, so who wants to read this? Chris,
I'll read it if anybody wants.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah.
Go for it.
O thou who art dear to Abdul Baha, thy letter was received, and the report of Count Tolstoy was also perused. In truth, it is thanks to thine endeavors that the Count has become more fair-minded, completely abandoning his former partiality. I hope that in all instances thou wilt be confirmed and assisted in rendering service to the Abha threshold. May my life be a sacrifice to his loved ones, and that thou wilt correspond with the aforesaid Count. It would do no harm to send him the translation of certain tablets that are appropriate to his circumstances and agreeable to his taste, yet not in such a manner that the Russian state would suspect that thou art in agreement and consort with him in all principles, even that of involvement in political affairs, for the aforesaid Count is extremely involved in political affairs. Thou didst write concerning the Russian lady. Thou hast permission to come with her on a visit hither. I hope that in this journey that thou wilt be blessed with the gracious favors and loving kindness of him who is the all-glorious, the most great. When once thou hast rendered the hidden words into Russian, shouldest thou print this, it would be most acceptable, and shouldest thou also translate some answered questions, that too would be agreeable. The glory of glories rest upon thee. Wow.
So this wasn't addressed to
Isabella, this is addressed
Isabella.
to what's her name for summaries of questions. We're drawing a blank.
Laura Barney.
Barney, yeah. So this is addressed to her. Now, what's interesting is the political upheaval in Russia at the time. Of course, it was a very politically charged time. In the early 20th century, you had the Russian Revolution going on, the precursors to World War I going on. Abdul Baha does mention Leo Tolstoy talking about the faith.
What year was this written?
Let's see, what year was this written? Does it say? Let me see if I can figure that out. Because she went to, so Isabella went to go meet Abdul Baha in early 1911. She spent 2 weeks in Egypt, actually. Abdul Baha was in Egypt at the time as the guest of Abdul Baha.
Right before he came to the U.S.
Right. So it was in Egypt. So I guess it would have been like it was early 1911 she went. So I guess in 1910, this letter would have been written.
Okay, so this predates the Russian Revolution and things like that.
Right. Yeah, there was just, it would have been lots of kind of murmurs of what's going on, what's going to happen. There was lots of upheaval at that time. So I find that fascinating. Now, what's interesting too is that I'll go back and share more about who's referred to as the Russian lady, Isabella right here. But she spent 2 weeks as a guest of Abdul Baha, and she published A Journey to the Countries of the Sun in 1914. I have not read this. So you should definitely check that out. Ooh, written by Martha Root. Martha Root wrote about that. And then she wrote a sequel to the Bab on the life of Baha'u'llah. It was published in 1912, but never performed. Wow, these are fascinating things. We should check these out. I know some of us are into writing screenplays and plays and that sort of stuff, right, Gabriel? We're into that kind of stuff. That would be fascinating to look at. Because there were a number of plays that were done in the early 20th, late 19th, early 20th century, including ones about the life of Tahirih as well, that were performed in Russia. So
yeah, my daughter loves to do plays and stuff, and she's in this sort of little group of young writers endeavor. That's like, Baha'i youth from various countries that have gotten together and doing things.
Nice.
That's wonderful.
Fascinating to, if these scripts can be found.
Right. So we definitely should try to find them. I'm sure they're published somewhere. But yeah, you notice Abdul Baha did mention Tolstoy's kind of change in view of the Babi and the Baha'i faith. Yeah, I don't know if you remember, there's a famous quote from him that we spend life looking for the answer to life's questions, and there's a key in the prison of Akka, something like that. That we see often mentioned. Let me see if I can find that. Yeah, what is it? Was the quote? We spend our life trying to unlock the mystery of the universe, but there is a Turkish prisoner, Baha'u'llah in Akka, Palestine, who has the key. So interesting.
And who wrote that, you said?
Leo Tolstoy.
Oh, Leo Tolstoy.
Yes, yes. Now, has anyone here actually ever read Tolstoy? Those big, thick books, War and Peace. Yes, yes. The only way I ever read any Tolstoy was when I took a class where it was required. That's not one of those books that you pick up. And if you're ever familiar,
I guess that was the original binge watching, binge reading.
right, exactly. Yeah, Russian novels are so intense, right? Like they're really intense, and they have a lot about like suffering and stuff, and it's really, yeah, it's an intense experience. It is not like just kind of picking up, Mark Twain or something, right? Like, it's very Russian. You have to have a love for that kind of thing, and like there's a lot of like talk about like how hard life is as farmers and stuff like that, and yeah, it is intense stuff. So that, I thought that was an interesting thing from Abdul Baha. Let me see. There were some more additional tablets. Let's see. Let me see here. Go back to additional tablets and talks. Let's see. There's a lot of good stuff here. Let me share my screen. Oh, here's the letter that Abdul Baha sent out. So this is interesting. He talks about this. Chris, you want to read this real quick?
Sure. A tablet of Abdul Baha. He is God. O thou who art firm in the covenant, I am on the verge of setting out towards the west. For this reason, I have not leisure to write at length. The speeches delivered in Europe have been collected and corrected, nay more, in the process of being printed. Shouldst thou translate and publish whichever of these are suitable for the Theosophists, it would do no harm. I shall embark in 2 days' time. Shouldst thou have an interest yearning to be in attendance, permission is granted thee. Convey to all the beloved of God as most wondrous Abha. The glory of glories rest upon thee.
It's interesting to see him talk about some of his talks and stuff being translated. And he's mentioning in particular speeches that were delivered in Europe. Now, what's fun is to kind of look back and see how was he received in Europe. And one of the things that I like to show sometimes is there was a lot of talk in the late 19th, early 20th century in the West. There was a lot of fascination with like mystical movements of the East, right? I don't know if you've ever seen like old like Shriners kind of imagery and stuff from that time period. Like there used to be a really cool building in Chicago that was like an old Shriner building, and if you looked at it, it had all this like Islamic like mentions all around the side, and they didn't really know much about Islam, but they were just kind of like people kind of interested with it, and they would bring this imagery. So there was just a general fascination as people were learning. As I've mentioned in previous talks, like for example, we didn't have many translations of the Quran back then. We only had like 2 or 3 English translations. There wasn't a whole lot of information available for people in the West, but there was this fascination. Chris, you're gonna say something?
Yeah, my doctoral dissertation was a study of Czech American elderly religiosity in Iowa. And
wow, that is very specific. Czech American elderly.
Yeah, I had a grant for, I was on a grant from Czech Czechs in Iowa. Now, Czechs settled in Texas, Iowa, and mainly Pennsylvania. They're, as you probably know, they're liberal Catholics, and the Poles are more conservative, but next door. When 50% of the Czechs that came over here left the church when they came to America, and they joined Masons and Masonic orders, which became kind of surrogate religions to them. I mean, these are liberal people that have very Baha'i-like views. Not to say all Baha'is are liberal, but I don't mean politically as much as religion is what I'm talking about, is that they have more of a inclusive,
Right.
you know, a broad sort of view toward religion. And at that time, even though Masonic orders had a lot of prejudice too, as we learned about Catholics originally and some of those other groups, they had a more of a deistic orientation.
Right. Right. Absolutely. That's fascinating.
Which theosophists are as well.
Right. Which now I have to go read your dissertation. I have a habit of reading everyone's dissertation that I know, but I've not read yours yet. Well,
I have to tell you a joke.
What's
you
that?
know what they called an abortion in Czech Republic?
What's that?
A canceled check.
that's awful. What? Cancel check. All right, so let's go. Let's look at let me see. Okay, here we go. I want to show this picture. Fantastic picture. All right, this is Le Petit Journal. It was a journal in France, and they were publishing talks from Abdul Baha. And so as you can see, it says in French, the new prophet of Islam. And they did a drawing of Abdul Baha standing up top and preaching in a Turkish market. And Abdul Baha mentions this in one of his letters. He mentions that he was honored to be on the cover, even though this is a very fantastical kind of display. I don't think we have anything to show that Abdul Baha ever stood up like this in a market or something like that and taught the faith. But it shows how there was a lot of interest in what Abdul Baha was saying and what he was teaching as he was going around through the West. Of course, we can search newspapers from New York and such to see all the different places where Abdul Baha taught, and we can see all the, let me see if I can bring some of these up, all the different, so here we go. Here is something from, here's from the Sun in New York. This is back when, so we see, there's a picture of Abdul Baha, head of the new religion coming here. There's a lot of legitimate interest. Let's see, what newspaper is this? This is the another one from the Sun. We can look at this. We can zoom in a little bit. So we see lots of interest in this new faith. Here we go. Abdul Baha gives his impressions of New York. All right, another picture here. But yeah, leaders of Baha'is find this city beautiful and great, but its civilization is too material, right? Probably still applicable to New York, somebody who grew up in New York, but let me see. So in his writings, he did, in these newly translated writings, he did have another thing about New York. So we can take a look at what he said there. Let's see. Here we go. So here is a mention of New York. Bless thou, O King of Kings, the city of New York. Cause the friends there to be kind to one another. purify their souls and make their hearts to be free and detached, illumine the world of their consciousness, exhilarate their spirits, and bestow celestial power and confirmation upon them. Establish their heavenly realm so that the city of Baha may prosper and New York be favored with the blessings of the Abha kingdom, that this region may become like the all-highest paradise, may develop into a vineyard of God, and be transformed into a heavenly orchard and spiritual rose garden. Now, as a New Yorker, let me tell you, this line right here, cause the friends there to be kind to one another, is one of the most challenging exhortations for a New Yorker. New Yorkers, it took me a while. When I moved from New York to Texas, I admit it took me a while to get used to Southern hospitality and friendliness and that sort of thing, right? New York has a culture of like, me go first, you know, I don't care about you. Very, very rough culture.
Abrasive?
Yes, absolutely. Drives my wife nuts sometimes when it's a bunch of our family from New York together. She's like, why are you guys like that, right? But you know, that was one of the challenges of New York. So I found that kind of neat, that little prayer for New York, which New York needs it for sure.
It ends it with a lot of imagery of gardens and plants and things like that, which is also interesting, right? Because New York's kind of a concrete jungle,
right?
Other than Central Park, I guess.
Right, a spiritual rose garden. It developed into a vineyard of God, be transformed into a heavenly orchard, a spiritual rose garden. Yes, absolutely. That is interesting, because it's, especially you think of what sometimes in writings, like, you know, the Quran talks about heaven and talks about like you know, rivers flowing and stuff like that, things that are very contrast to what the actual topography there is. So that's kind of interesting. So I find that interesting. Now, what was interesting about New York was the one time where I noticed a big cultural change was in the aftermath of 9/11, and I got to New York a little bit after that, and I was actually I noticed that, you know, it was decidedly different for a little while. You notice this sense of, you know, commonality and community that didn't exist there. Unfortunately, it kind of wore off after a while, but
I would imagine coronavirus may be doing something similar.
Right. I know. I wonder that too. How you know, joyful people will be just to be able to get together and stuff like that. You know. But yeah, the Northeast has its own culture. You know. I was telling somebody the other day. I remember going to a Boston Celtics game. And I went to the Celtics versus the Knicks, and I was wearing my Knicks jersey.
Oh.
And I got some beer poured down my back. So yeah, but
nice.
But yes, so yeah, culture is interesting. All right. Now here's another one about New York. Here we go. So all right. I eagerly anticipate the day when New York will become a blessed spot from which the call to steadfastness in the covenant of God will go forth to every part of the world, thus making that city outstanding from every point of view. Bless thou, O King of Kings, the city of New York. Cause the friends there to be kind to one another. Right. So another one, kind to one another. Purify their souls and make their hearts to be free and detached. Yeah. So let me see. There was this. Let me see. Here's one. Here's one, Montreal. So you can kind of see Abdul Baha's traveling around. O thou, mine intimate and my confidant. In Montreal, I could not be more busily occupied. The interactions and discussions during the day and the nightly conversations are extensive. Of all places, this is the best. There's a great deal to see, a small glimpse of which may be obtained from the newspapers. With respect to thyself, do thou carry out what I instructed thee. There is no opportunity to write more than this. Send down thy letter to Ahmadov, together with the details of the events that transpired. So interesting little letter talking about. So does anyone know what month Abdul Baha was in Montreal off the top of their head? Of all places.
No.
I'm gonna guess it wasn't February. He's saying how great it was.
Well, I thought he arrived in February and left in December.
Yeah, I wonder. So.
Someone
Jane-
just placed, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, Gabrielle, sorry.
Someone just placed something in the chat that they disagree.
Oh, yeah, Jane.
I was going to ask Jane to talk to it.
I moved here from New York City. It was the toughest move. No one offered to help me. Coworkers saw me walking to purchase a car. No one offered me a ride. 2 years to make friends in Texas. I made friends instantly in New York. Oh, there we go. I love their directness. Yes, the directness is something that is great. But yes, Jane has some good stories about life in New York, actually.
That's good because my daughter is trying to find a job there. And
oh,
mom
really?
is like, it's so big and you're so tiny and it's going to swallow you, New York. So it's good to hear what Jane has to say.
Yes. So Jane moved there from Missouri, actually, right? And,
yeah, I was a hillbilly and I was embraced. And same thing, my sister just moved from New York City after 40 years there. Horrible time trying to find friends in Austin. She's been here almost 3 years now. Yeah. And then COVID hit. I mean, her neighbors don't embrace her. One stole her shoes that were left at the front door. I'm telling you, I remember driving to my first interview in Austin, and over the radio, I heard, if it's so great in New York, why don't you all move back? And so probably I was treated badly here because I was from there. But you hear my accent. I'm not a New Yorker.
No. I think Californians are the new New Yorkers now in Austin, right? Where like people don't want people from California moving here, right? I constantly see on like Austin boards and stuff. It's kind of distasteful.
Yeah, I guess increasing property values and stuff because they're buying up things. But it's still, we have to not do that because
absolutely.
I mean, I absolutely see it. I swear I saw all my coworkers driving by and it was so hot and I was walking. I think it was 20 blocks I walked in Austin. People don't walk that much here. And I was walking to purchase a car.
Oh,
and
right.
All the coworkers knew it. They all heard me on the phone arranging it. None offered me a ride.
Are you sure
I would think people were more protected here, so they were more cautious. They were more in their groups.
Are you sure they were all Austinites? Because when I moved here from California, and I didn't know it was a trend, I actually moved to Round Rock and I was shocked at how friendly everyone was. I mean, like in the grocery stores, everywhere I went, it was so different. And I know that Austin has so many new people. So, you don't know whether they were actual Austinites or Texans because there's so many new people. Are you sure they were Austinites? And
they all were. I think my coworkers at the time, it was an advertising agency, a small one, and we were all in one room so we could hear each other's conversations. It could be also that the job market was tighter then, and so people were worried about their jobs. But here it is all these years later, and I see my sister experiencing it. She's very friendly. She speaks to her neighbors, and they just go about their way. They don't speak to her. So I don't know. I think that any place you go, if you're perceived as different, there's going to be a cautionary. If they perceive you as different from what they're used to.
Interesting.
Maybe.
Right.
There's and there's that, I think I think we have to be mindful of that. I think it's a great reminder of how we think, even the whole thing about, Californians, they're raising all the prices here and everything. And so then that kind of gets, looked at. I really appreciate you mentioning that, the thing about hearing the thing on the radio, because I'm sure people who are here from California that hear those kinds of things makes them feel unwelcome as well. And it's like really, borders, between our states so much, and it's absolutely true, around the world, that those are just things that we have invented as people, right? And so we think about the earth being one country. So how do we treat others that are, that are coming, that have needs, or in both ways, right? In this case, I think we think of them like, oh well, they're coming in with all their money, so they're driving everything up. It's hard. I mean, I I struggle right now thinking about whether I could afford to buy a home or not, here, and that is a reality, of course, that is that a lot of people deal with. And so
Right.
so yeah, that from an economic perspective, it puts a lot of pressure, but we still have to be so mindful about how we treat each other, and the kindness and the warmth that we're supposed to show one another. Yeah.
Right.
Because that experience, Jane, that still, you still carry that. How long ago was that? It was a while back, right? And you still remember that.
Right.
Well, and I still find it. We just moved to Marble Falls and it's hot and cold here. But again, I think there's a different political climate.
Mm.
Like I think I told you, my husband went fishing 3 weeks ago and 3 boats rushed up on him, 4 men in each boat, and they told him he didn't belong there and that he needed to leave immediately. And he
Really?
did. He did. Because
Wow.
he didn't look like they looked. So we talked to the game warden. We've talked to everyone about it and tried to spread the word around.
Wow.
So maybe that's why we're here, is to make a difference in those areas.
It particularly galling for somebody who is a Native American to hear that.
Exactly.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? You just never know. And I think I've told you that neighbors here ask what he charges to do lawn care. And he says, you can't afford me. They don't fathom that he's the homeowner.
Right.
So
Right.
all kinds of package. I remember my first week in Austin. The entire office was white, European descent. And I remember the owner was looking for a new receptionist. And he said, make sure there are no ethnics. I don't want any damn ethnics here. And it turns out his first wife was Mexican and his kids were all half Mexican.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes. So that was years ago. Yeah. But you just never know. And I think it does teach us just to be open to see the heart of everyone and to show them our hearts.
Yeah.
Bear, by the way, Bear did not show them his heart. He left immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. Understandable.
So let me throw a maybe a more hopeful story that's happening here in my apartment complex, and that
Good.
we've created a really neat little community of just people who have been supporting one another, and it started during the freeze, the sort of the winter storm that we've had here, and but it's that group has become like community wide, like all 15 buildings now. We have like more than 90 people in there. We're still adding folks, and no one's left. The group, even people who've moved out, have stayed in our WhatsApp group, and still are planning to come to things. So there was an outdoor little grill cookout that only my building folks that organized, and then they invited a few others, and with permission and with distancing and all that stuff. And so I was there on Friday, and as I was telling my parents about it yesterday, I was realizing how diverse the group of people were there. And even like the one maintenance guy we still have on staff, he happened to walk by, and we were all like, hey, come and join us. And, we got to chat and everything like that. And, he just happened to be there that evening. And, he stayed with us and, hung out with us for, about 45 minutes. But we had, people from, all kinds of different places. We had people who were, originally Texan. We had, guy who was there from Louisiana, his wife's from England, a young fellow from Colombia, and a couple from Venezuela. We had a young lady from India who was there. We had, you keep, a lady who's she's of Hispanic, but she grew up in Baltimore, not Baltimore, Maryland rather, and came here from Maryland, and moved here. And a Jewish guy who was from LA, then moved to New York, and now he's here, type of thing. So I mean, you got a whole family of people. And so I guess what that also reminds me of, and sort of tying this back to New York and the things that Abdul Baha was saying, you think of New York, it's not just a big city, because surely there's bigger cities than New York around the world. You look at Mexico City and a lot of places in China that definitely have larger populations than New York City, but it's so international. There are so diverse people from, and not just from the US, but from all around the world, right? And so I know London has a lot of diverse peoples there, but I don't know that anything. I'd be curious to see if there's any city more inclusive than New York City. And it's for us Baha'is, it's the city of the covenant, right? I'm just interested in how that city is attracting peoples, but also has this this spiritual destiny.
It's funny you should mention that. Last time I was in New York, speaking to my Uber drivers, I didn't speak a word of English to any of my Uber drivers going all over New York. Only Spanish and Arabic, like all my Uber drivers. One of them was a baseball player. I forget where he was from, Latin American baseball player, but he's a minor league baseball player trying to make it, which then I realized I do not know all the baseball terminology in Spanish. So I'm trying to learn how to say, curveball and screwball in Spanish, right? Because he was a pitcher, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I've never talked about baseball like this in this depth, So we're trying to figure out, I'm going through the hand motions of the pitches, how do you say this? But yeah, you're right. It is a diverse place, and unbelievably diverse. And there's some great comments where Vanessa says that she would have offered to take Jane to get a car. Every time is that Texas, I feel a personal duty to take them out to lunch. So Vanessa would have helped you. Chris Johnson acknowledges it depends on which part of Austin. B Cave's neighborhoods mostly were like Jane describes. We were temporarily living right off First Street, and it's the diametric opposite. Very friendly and all kinds of people here. The neighborhoods that are New House in Southwest Austin, New Dripping Springs have been great so far as well. Being from Iowa, the neighbors that grew up within a small town were awesome. So it all depends on where we are talking about. Yeah. And Amethyst says that it's so terrible about bear fishing. Yeah. Yes, that is terrible. I can't believe that. And it is the stinger that he is Native American. He was here first. Those people were here first.
He was in shock for quite a while after that. He was very quiet. I think it was the overwhelming feeling of being helpless. He is licensed to carry, but what could he have done? He could have been drowned. So he did go back and notified the game warden before he went, and he will just continue to have a presence there.
Right.
But we just do things with awareness now.
Right. And he just got that boat recently too that he fishes in, right?
He's been working on the boat. So I'd say for the past year, he's been on it, improving this, improving that. So this was his first outing alone.
Nice.
And it was Kingsland. He was, I think it was LBJ Kingsland.
Nice.
So, yeah.
All right.
But also, I think that my experience has changed me, that I'm like Vanessa, where anyone I meet, I think it's my duty to help them feel welcome.
Right.
So I think it made an impression on me. And Nabil, I sent the article about what happened in your apartment complex to my sister, and she said it made her cry because hers isn't like that. She said, "Don't show me nice people."
Oh.
So, she's in Westlake. So
I wanted to kind of formally introduce my friend Soraya. I don't thinks she's going to show her video because I'm catching her off guard and she's going to be mad at me. But speaking of new neighbors, my friend Soraya, you can see her little iPad icon there.
Hi,
She just
Soraya.
moved to Austin. Woo! 3 weeks ago. She's my new roomie. So woo! So maybe
Welcome, Soraya.
one day I'll let her know. You got to meet everyone, and then she'll be ready to turn on the camera. But anyway, I just wanted to. We're talking about making people feel welcome, so I wanted to. Oh, the camera! Do you have a little something over your camera so that we can't see you, like a little piece of paper?
Oh, yes. I
We
always
should-
forget about this. My apologies. Hello, everyone.
Welcome, Soraya.
Thank you. Gabrielle got me by surprise, but
I'm
it's all good.
Is it all good?
It's all
Good.
good. Thank you. So, yeah, I'm new to
So a little bit
Austin.
about Soraya, since she's new in the neighborhood. Soraya and I go way back. We had our kids together when they were small. You know, we were neighbors, so our kids played with each other a lot. And so we go that far back. And told her how wonderful Austin is. And I'm sorry, everybody, that's how Austin grows. We tell everyone how wonderful Austin is and somebody else comes. But Soraya is just an amazing person, and she's been a friend of the faith for years. She's gone to so many Baha'i things, and I've gone to her religious things, and so she's really familiar with a lot of this stuff. And she's been attending the Sundays quite frequently. If you've seen her little, I don't know, what do you call these little things? Screen names. And so I'm just really happy to have her here, and I wanted to introduce her.
Nice. Well, welcome.
Very, very welcome.
Good to see you.
And you're getting a great welcome from Vanessa's little baby there. So cute.
Very cute. How old's your baby, Vanessa?
9 months. 9 months. Yeah. 9 months.
Adorable.
She's trying to eat the camera.
She has us in rapt attention.